This is going to be a video going over removing E9x M3 bushings from the subframe using this tool right here from eBay. The tool can be purchased for about $100 shipped in the US. Really simple tool. Here's the basics that I believe you're going to need. First off, 19mm wrench. You could get away with a deep 19mm socket, but it's a lot of adjusting. I'd recommend a 19mm wrench with lots of leverage. Next thing is a screwdriver. Reason being, and I'll show this in the video, you have to pry up the lips on the E9x M3 bushings, break them off in order to fit the tool over it. Here's an example of what I am talking about. You can see how I have partially broken off the lip around it. Funny enough, I didn't actually have to do that for this bushing, but that's besides the point. Pry bar, same thing, breaking the lip off, just to make it easier. Adjustable wrench, this can be replaced with another 19mm socket, or 19mm wrench if you wanted. I just like adjustable because it's easy. A set of pliers for gripping the edge, and a hammer for hammering underneath the edge to break it off. Before you start, when you first receive the tool, you will not receive this with it. However, you need to use some type of high pressure lubricant on all of the threads. The warranty is void if you don't, and that being said, it will make your life 100 times harder. You can use anti-seize, you can use any type of high pressure lubricant, you could use super lube, again, anything high pressure. You can see specifically in the use case is threads, so that's what we'll be using. The next piece of the puzzle is identifying which bushings are where. So to start with, this is a subframe removed from the vehicle. It is flipped over. All of the diagrams that are included on the eBay listing include the subframe still mounted in the vehicle with this side facing up. This is backwards. Here you can see an example of what needs to happen, and I will grab the tool in a minute to show you exactly why. You have to go around and you have to break all of this off. Now, if you are installing this, or rather using this tool on a car that is not an E9x M3, if you are using it on a 335, 328i, any number of those, you do not have to break the lip off. This is specific to M3. And here is the explanation for removing the lip on the bushing. As you can see, this is one of the tools that you have to use. It will not fit over the bushing all the way if the lip is still intact. You can see it doesn't sit over it, it sits on it. The bushing from the flange side comes into the tool every time, from front and rear, always comes into the tool. It is never being pulled through the flanges, so you have to remove those lips. Here's the basic idea of removing the flanges. Take your favorite, not a hammer tool, hammer it in, and get underneath here and break it off. It is, as you can see here, relatively brittle aluminum that will in fact break off. You just have to go around and do the whole bushing. All right, so you have now successfully removed all the bits and pieces. They should have broken off relatively easy. Now we will go to how to assemble the cup. So just for reference, the subframe is off the vehicle. This is the rear bushing, and the subframe is flipped over. So in the diagrams, you're gonna have to take that into consideration. Now that being said, it's a pretty simple process. It's this cup, it's this top, goes through like that, washer on the underside, and then the lock nut and flange nut and lock nut on the bottom. Just as a note, when you go to tighten the flange nut and the lock nut together, you are essentially attempting to squish this washer as tight as it can get before you lock it down. If you don't, you will end up spinning the shaft instead of the nut on here that is designed to pull this in, and it makes it significantly longer to address. And here's everything assembled. Again, this is the rear bushing and the subframe is flipped over. Cone, top, the nut that you're going to be spinning because it has the washer underneath of it, or sorry, the bearing underneath of it. On this side, we have the big washer, and then we have the lock nuts. You can still do this in the vehicle, just be considerate of which way you need to install these tools, and take special care to break the flanges off, and don't damage the mounting points on the unibody for the subframe when you are smacking it around attempting to break the flanges, these pieces, off of the bushings. And just like that, you have removed one of your rear bushings from our E9x M3 subframe. And again, this tool can be used on E9x M3 and E9x base model. Now, we're going to move on to one of the front bushings. We will have to flip the subframe over so the correct orientation when it is in the vehicle if you were looking at it from the bottom. We'll go over how to set up the tool, what flange to break off, and then we will remove the bushing. All right, the subframe is now positioned in the way that it would be in the vehicle. This is the front of the subframe that is facing towards the front of the car. This is the top side that is facing up towards the unibody. And if you need a reference point, right here would be where your sway bar mounts. Now, this bushing right here, same thing with the E9x M3, we have to break off the flange. Here's the reason why. If we install this tool on top, although it looks like it is the right size, it is not. Break off these flanges and then go to town. Okay, we've broken off the flange around it. So now this piece gets installed here. I mean, I guess technically it could get installed anywhere, but besides the point. This piece goes on top. Now here's the important part. Make sure your pins are centered around the cup, not inside of the cup. From there, it's the same process as before. Washer on the bottom, and then your 2 lock nuts. And that's it. From there, you can remove your bushings. There will be a second part to this video in probably a couple weeks after the subframe is powder coated, installing aluminum bushings with some tips and tricks for that. This is it all assembled. One tip and notice for this: you need to be very particular about this washer because it is just the correct size to fit inside of the subframe. If you get it offset at all, it will damage the subframe. So pay particular attention to that.